It's kind of hard to relate to people who weren't there just how big Paulie Shore was in the 90s. I remember this dude being everywhere, and luckily I got the chance to see Encino Man, Son-in-Law, In the Army Now, and Jury Duty along with Biodome in theaters. And to me, the Weasel was Pauly. Of course, over the years, I'd see him in bit roles here and there I somehow missed, and especially I noticed his voice in various animated productions. Nobody can say Pauly ever really went away or anything. I mean, he's been working this whole time, and recently gave us a pretty funny flick, Guest House. I've even seen him like 3 times live, which is always a blast, and you know, one time I went to see Corey Feldman and Pauly Shore was in the crowd, and when he walked by me, I went, "Ah!" And he wasn't amused, yeah. But there's also really no denying that Pauly indeed had a heyday, and while other young stars took similar paths like Pauly, here we have a pretty unique take on the phenomenon that is the child star machine. As aside from the bigger productions he took part in, he also took part in some more, let's say forgotten or lesser seen comedy romps. Now I won't be considering stuff like his voice or TV work, or even his later, more successful attempts at films, but focusing more on his lesser known or under the radar stuff, some of which I completely forgot about. So join me, Alex Staunch, as we look back at those other Pauly Shore movies. I guess a notable role to mention is Julian Thomas in the underrated 1992 Jim, Class Act, where he's basically Stony, referring to himself as such, and he even sings that same tune from Encino Man, which was Lisa Lisa, which was Pauly Shore's single. 2, 3, 4, I'm a stony crusty dude. But we'll talk about that some other time. And you know, it's kind of cool to see the Weasel idea carried over from Encino Man to Class Act. Hell, Encino Man came out just a month before.
Meet group!
Pauly was evolving to what would soon be full Weasel potential, as his career would take off, and for a while there, his films were making some serious money, and he became a very marketable star. And much like other young stars, it didn't last forever. Pauly stated it was a series of bad decisions that led to his eventual disappearance from the big screen. He even said on the Joe Rogan Experience that he was basically up against the wall as far as In the Army Now, which led to his live-action Disney days coming to an end, and eventually, you know, Jury Duty, and so on, and so on.
Now, I really can't breathe.
And while, you know, I think Biodome is among his best, I suppose it was just too little too late. The first film Pauly would take part of after his initial success was 1997's The Curse of Inferno, where Pauly sports a Texas accent and is teamed up with the mighty Max Perlich.
Paulie Shore's got a plan.
Hurry up.
To escape small-town Inferno.
But I have the Curse of Inferno hanging over me.
You monster!
The only problem is, he can't keep his hands on the loot.
$3 million!
Or off the local sheriff.
You know, I think you've got a little fever.
I believe I do.
In the film, a rather dull-minded bank robber suddenly suffers from a change of heart and decides to give the money back. However, he then learns that getting the money back into the bank is much more difficult than taking it out, which is kind of a, you know, loose description of this flick. The film plays out as a subtle romantic comedy, light on the comedy to be honest, but there is some funny moments. The film kind of plays out as a mashup of ideas that, you know, don't really work. It's quite the chore to sit through at times with very little payoff, and there's some pretty annoying supporting cast here. But, you know, Pauly is really going for it. Honestly, I kind of forgot he was doing an accent sometimes, surprisingly, right? I mean, he fits pretty good in this part.
From out of nowhere, prepare, you be blinded by the glare. I told you not to stare, now you're turned into stone without a microphone.
Shortly after, in the year 2000, Pauly would take part in the spoof that was the Bogus Witch Project, which was basically a bunch of really low-budget skits, just one after another, with titles like the Blair Underwood Project. Here, Pauly hosts a series of awful dog shit skits. It looks like he was on set for maybe a day, and, you know, he doesn't even pop up till after the 30-minute mark. This movie is basically unwatchable, just low-budget attempts at humor stitched together. Not much else to say here. Cringy, yeah, that's the word. Cringy stuff for the most part. But, again, I'd say Paulie's part in the movie is the best. Yeah.
I almost starred in the Blair Witch Project.
Get out of here. No way.
No, seriously, look, check out this audition tape.
Action.
Pauly would then go on to appear in some fun cameo roles throughout the decade, one of the more memorable ones being the guy in the trunk in the misfire that was The Wash. But shortly after, Pauly would produce, star, and direct Paulie Shore is Dead, a film that I put on the higher tier of his later attempts at film, as he got behind the camera for the first time, and the film got some notoriety upon release. And even though it was blasted by critics, it did pretty good on video and such. However, a movie that slipped by my radar was the 2009 farce Opposite Day. I'd say this film is among his worst overall. It's pretty bad. Here we get the kid who wishes to be the adult and, through some magic or whatever, they switch spots and, yeah, same old shit here, just done way worse. Basically, we get to see the bad child acting and, we get to see Paulie Shore goof off a little bit. Nobody really seems too interested in what's going on, and I don't know, I guess this one's more of a family film now that I think about it, so can't be too harsh, I guess. Whatever. Pauly would then get behind the camera again and gave us Adopted in 2010. And again, I put this on his better works of his later days. The documentary style he uses really works, and I think this is where he thrives. I really enjoyed his Showtime doc as well, but anyway, Adopted also did pretty good on video and got a lot of exposure when Pauly accused Sacha Baron Cohen of stealing a bit from him. The adopting a baby from Africa and such. Pauly would keep on working and would appear in Stonerville in 2010, which sadly was Leslie Nielsen's last released project. Rest in peace. And it is what it is. It's a movie called Stonerville.
It's just too much for mere mortals to handle.
And it wouldn't be until 2012 when Pauly got another leading role. Now, this whole time, Pauly was working his ass off, and his status as a comedy legend held strong to his loyal fans. And while stuff like Biodome or Jury Duty might show here and there on cable, Son-in-Law was basically on repeat on CMT. They've been showing Son-in-Law, and it seemed to have been a popular program for them because they eventually reached out to Pauly to be in a CMT-produced comedy film, using the Shore in his name to mimic the Jersey Shore fad, and the moonshining plot to please the CMT fans, I guess. In 2012, we got the CMT original film, Whiskey Business, which ironically contains similar elements to Son-in-Law in that we get a big city type, forced into some fish-out-of-water humor when he has to go to the small town, In Whiskey Business, the son of New Jersey mob boss, Nicky Ferrelli, is framed for murder he didn't commit. He goes on the run and ends up in Tennessee where he bonds with the residents of a small town. And I was pleasantly surprised by this one. I watched the premiere and everything. You can tell they tried here, and there's some good laughs. I even really like Pauly's Jersey Shore accent, and all the mob tropes at play here are done well, and the score is even pretty good. I'd like to see more from Nicky Ferrelli. I wonder why CMT didn't do more movies with him. I swear I remember hearing they signed some sort of picture deal, but I don't know, I can't find anything. Pauly would again step behind the camera for the acclaimed Paulie Shore Stands Alone, which aired on Showtime, and he even directed and starred in a pretty cool short film called Sin City Psycho, where he plays against type and channels some Blue Velvet energy. He would keep doing cameos and such all the while, and return to form with 2020's Guest House, where again, he stars. And here we get a resemblance of Pauly's heyday. While it leads to raunchy territory, the movie has a lot of heart, and Pauly's washed out, partied out slacker character really comes full circle, and it's interesting to see him play this kind of role now. You can still catch Pauly live when a pandemic isn't happening, but for now you can catch him on his Random Rants podcast and follow him on social media and such, as I am sure as long as his fans are watching and reacting, Pauly will keep giving us the goods. I for one think he has a knack for documentaries, and I would love to see him take on a subject we probably wouldn't expect him to. Or, even another whiskey business movie. Or Biodome 2. Biodomer. You're going to hell, Stephen Baldwin. There's nothing you can do about it. What's your favorite Pauly Shore movie? Let me know in the comments. I will eventually cover Pauly's work on television and music, as well as touch on some of his classic films, of course. So please, subscribe and share. Oh, and hit that little notification bell to stay up to date with all the breathtaking content found only on STAUNCH TV.